Well, there's Jose Mourinho leaving the field at Old Trafford. An odd night at that famous stadium after all that build-up, all the newspaper coverage, the press talk. Certainly nobody gets people in football talking like Jose Mourinho does. There is the table. You can see earlier on, Juventus beat Young Boys of Bern by 3-0. So they are top 2 wins out of 2. Manchester United second on 4. And Manchester United next have those home and away fixtures against Juventus. So they have Juventus and Ronaldo and all that stuff coming to Old Trafford in 3 weeks' time. And then there is the return fixture in Turin following that. So 4 points out of 6 on the board. Damien, what's your verdict on that? Like, you know, Mourinho, we're talking beforehand about maybe a performance to quell the critics, quell the doubters, all that stuff. But there were some boos as the team left the field at the end of the match. No goals, and it was kind of limp.
If you're a Man United fan, you're looking at that tonight. I think if you're honest with yourself, I think it's an awful watch. Granted, there's a strange atmosphere around the ground, no doubt, around the club, body language of the players. And you'd have to say, looking at that, they're nowhere near winning the league, let alone the Champions League. Their next 2 group games in the Champions League is Juve home and away. So potentially, after 4 games, they could still be on 4 points. And, you know, they spent 430 million and they look far, far from the finished article. So, like I said, even if they won tonight, that performance was ugly at best, and I still think it's worrying times for the manager, which is sad to say.
Other people will be, people who are not fans of Manchester United will be quite pleased with the way this thing is going. But Liam, you know, I'm just thinking, we may hear from Mourinho before we go off air, but what do you expect him to say about this evening?
Probably that there's no easy games in the Champions League. I think Guardiola has been saying it this week after losing to Lyon. And I think Mourinho will probably say the same thing. There's no easy games. Valencia, good side, good pedigree. But really, that's just covering over the cracks, isn't it? The lack of quality to that Manchester United team was scary. It was frightening. There was a bit more commitment in the second half, and I thought they got a bit more pressure on the Valencia players and consequently had more of the game. But, you know, the quality in their side... Sanchez,
do you think it'd be better under a different manager?
Sanchez, Pogba, Lukaku, Rashford... None of them played well.
But do you think it'd be better under another manager?
Yeah, I don't think there's any plan or any strategy to their play. There's no playmaker in midfield. They're all over the place. Fellaini, what was he doing tonight? I don't know. It was terrible, really, abject. And, you know, you could see the fans, they didn't want to protest so much, but they're just scratching their heads and saying, this is not our club anymore. This is not what Manchester United is about. And, you know, you've got the international break coming up soon, and that usually means some managers are going to lose their positions, the ones that are not doing very well. That's the time it comes along. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in the international break. Even if they do beat, Ray mentioned Newcastle at the weekend, even if they do beat Newcastle at the weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a change of management at Old Trafford.
Richie?
I don't think it matters what Mourinho says now in his post-match conference interviews. He may try and come up with something to try and direct us all down a certain line of conversation. What matters now is what Ed Woodward is saying privately to the Glazers and what they're saying in return. I don't think they can look at tonight and have any different view than they had when they looked at the West Ham game or the scenes after being knocked out of the League Cup against Derby, and all the information they're privy to, which we're not, which is the actual realities of what's life like at the training ground between the staff and Mourinho, or Mourinho and the players, the conversations the players are having with each other, their advisors with the club, who's actually wanting to leave the club. Is Pogba's talk about leaving, is that just paper talk, or has he communicated that to the club? They'll assess it all, and I cannot see how you could look at a whole picture here and say that the thing that we need to do as a club is to back the manager. I understand, like, we're looking all night about listen to boos or jeers or what with the United fans saying. They're used
sack
to
him and bring in who now?
Well, that's the issue.
There's another, like, have they made this decision already?
Yeah, that's the issue United have. Are they going to just repeat what they did in the last 2 or 3 times? So they give it to a new man, give him the budget. He'll spend a year or 2 trying to get rid of the disenfranchised Mourinho players, or the players that don't fit into the new man's tactics. Or are they going to restructure and get a director of football in and make the Mourinho's successor be what Mourinho hinted on the opening day that his role was becoming, head coach of a club.
And maybe
where someone
what he
else
needed
brings-
Whatever happens is major surgery needed to that squad of players. They are not good enough to win the league. They're nowhere, as Damien said, they're nowhere near winning the Champions League. And Ed Woodward has, and he's not beyond criticism as well, because he got rid of Moyes after one season, not even one season.
8 months or something, wasn't it?
And he put Van Gaal in place. It wasn't a match for Manchester United. And now he's put Mourinho in place. It never was going to be a match of the traditions and the legacy of that club.
We're going to look at I suppose, Mourinho and fans of his who support Man United will be looking for positives out of this evening. The bits of good play that we saw from them, Liam, like, well, it would be your verdict, the three of you, is that it wasn't good enough.
We're picking up bones, Dara. You know, very little. There was one shot on target in the first half, and very, very little in the second half. This is Pogba coming on to a knockdown from Lukaku. This is Lukaku running in behind. This was the only time they really troubled Neto, and it wasn't, as Ray said in commentary, it wasn't a difficult save. That was Rashford hitting the crossbar near the end, and this was Lukaku heading it over. None of the players seem to be playing with any belief or any confidence. And, you know, football is the professional football. The buck stops with the manager. And the spotlight is well and truly on him and the job he's doing at Manchester United. It's not good enough.
You mentioned, Liam, about confidence. How many of these errors, Richie, we're going to see are down to, like, players make mistakes all the time, but their lack of confidence, that they've just been so battered by all of the stuff going on.
This is Lukaku here, elementary mistakes. I mean, none of the players walked off that pitch tonight thinking they got anywhere near their best, but the basics, so many of them were at fault for not even making that level. It was Lukaku's bad touch in the first place. Pogba missed ball forward. Matic here, it's difficult to know what he's attempting. And Sanchez here, he's really starting to worry about this. He's just so out of sync with everything that goes on around him. And he has been since he arrived at Old Trafford. He looks completely out of his depth, which is difficult to understand why, given what we saw of him at Arsenal. He knows the realities of the situation at the moment. I cannot see him staying in that job much longer. We now should already be focused or wondering what the post-Marina era is going to look like and how's that going to take shape, because that's where this is heading very soon.
Are you that definitive on it? Is he gone soon, Damien?
I hope not. Obviously, I've been a fan for...
He's Damien's man, isn't he?
That's why I'm here tonight, to fight his corner.
Listen, and you're standing up for
listen, watching that, watching last season, watching the start of this season, like I said earlier, the worst start in 29 years, and seeing his past, the way it unravelled, I don't see any way back at the minute. And forget even about him, just looking at the team, Fellaini getting you started, Fellaini playing as a Man United footballer, I've always had a problem with that. Anyway, Sanchez, for me, he's fallen off a cliff. He's gone, his legs are gone. And even you look at the bench, you think Man United, big teams in the past, who's going to come on and change the game? So worrying times regardless of the manager.
All right, well, we'll see. Interesting couple of days ahead. That's it from us.